Jesus taught his disciples what true marriage was, they were completely scandalized. As a matter of fact, the apostles, these aren't just the normal people. These are his closest disciples. When they listened to Jesus' teaching about the permanence of marriage, about the fact that fidelity was non-negotiable, that there was no such thing as divorce, they were so scandalized that they said to him, Lord, if marriage is like this, it's better not to get married. Jesus lifted up Christian marriage and explained that it is inviolable, that divorce and remarriage is adultery. He made a very tiny exception, but the normative teaching of the church is divorce and remarriage is adultery. When they heard this, they said, it's better not to get married. And he didn't say, hey, you're misunderstanding me, guys. No, he said, let him who can accept the teaching accept it. For this reason, many are eunuchs by choice. Many choose not to get married because they're going to be held to a high standard.
Now, this gentleman is only talking about what the character of Jesus said in Matthew chapter 19, and we're going to get to that aspect of it. But what he also is referring to is that in this gospel, the so-called character of Jesus made a commentary about marriage twice. And in chapter 5, he said that a man shouldn't divorce his wife except in the case of porneia, which is sexual immorality. Now, understand historically, men could not commit adultery by having sex with another virgin or another unwed woman, only by committing adultery with another man's wife. That was adultery for a man. But in this case, it's really just talking about men divorcing their wives. So in this instance, it is the wife who has committed adultery or has had bestiality or some other type of sexual immorality, and that a man can then divorce his wife over those issues. But he is basically pulling from chapter 19, which also used the term porneia, where they are trying to trap Jesus in a question, because Moses had given the children of Israel the right to divorce their wife if they were to give them a piece of paper or a stone or a tablet, whatever, that grants them divorce over that wife. And in this case, Jesus is saying that, yeah, Moses gave y'all that. That wasn't from God. That was something that Moses did. So it wasn't from God, which shows a contradiction in the Old Testament compared to the New Testament, because Moses was supposedly getting all of his ordinances, all of his laws, all his decrees, all his rites and rituals and commandments from this God. So you either have to say that Moses did something on his own, or God gave Moses all these tenets that the people of Israel are supposed to follow. So you have to pick and choose which one you're going to accept. Most Christians are going to accept that Moses was doing that part on his own because Jesus said so, right? And in this case, if you accept it that way, then that's fine, except for the fact that as Jesus continued to speak on the subject matter, he then contradicts something of the Old Testament that is supposedly had been given by God to Moses, as far as men making the choice of whether or not they are going to be married, and some of those men either being made a eunuch, which means that you have been castrated, being made a eunuch. Some men were born castrated, but saying that if a man is castrated or makes himself castrated, or another nation makes that man castrated, then he is focused only on God, and he wouldn't have to worry about getting married. This is also echoed in, or should I say with Paul. Paul in 1 Corinthians speaks about the fact that if a man remains chaste and does not marry because he is only focused on God, and that is better. But if a man can't resist, if he has that focus on a woman, then he should get married, and there's nothing wrong with that. Paul is effectively saying this at this time frame because Paul accepted that Jesus said that he returned before this generation ends, and that men should be focused on God and not focused on things of the earth. But if you can't, then it's okay. You can still go to God, because if a man gets married, then he's going to be focused on his wife and not just solely on God. But if a man stays unmarried, he'll be focused on God. He'll be focused on If a man stays unmarried, he'll be focused on God. But if a man is married, he's gonna focus on his wife, and then secondary maybe focus on God. So Paul just suggested this, and Paul also said that a woman, if she is divorced, that she shouldn't get married again. That it'll be better for her, and he specifically said that's his opinion. Moses never said this was his opinion as far as giving a divorce. He gave those decrees based on what he believed this God was telling him, giving him decrees, seeing him on the mountain and all these other sorts of things. But back to the whole eunuch part, according to Jesus, a eunuch can enter into heaven, whether done by birth, by another nation, or if he does it himself, which flies directly into the face of Deuteronomy 23, where it specifically says that if a man has been emasculated, either by crushing or by cutting, that he cannot enter into the assembly of God. So he can't enter into the assembly of God on earth, nor can he enter into the assembly of God in this ethereal heaven. And as Jesus said multiple times, the kingdom of earth, the kingdom of God is at hand. The kingdom of God is now, is right in front of you, is all around you. This is the kingdom of God that you should be, even in his prayer, that his kingdom be on earth as it is in heaven. So when you look at the writings of Moses, well, Moses didn't write it, but when you look at the Pentateuch, look at Deuteronomy 23, it's saying that a castrated man, a eunuch, cannot enter into heaven, that he doesn't have that ability, which is a difference from what the Jesus character is talking about. This is one of the reasons why the Gnostics believed that Jesus was worshiping the Plamora, the true God, and that the Old Testament Israelites were worshiping this negative God, worshiping the God of the earth who created the universe, or created our known universe, without the help of the Plamora, without the help of the Sophia, that this was the Beelzebub, that they was creating without Beelzebub, and that he created this overly masculine world. And as I said before, in their time frame, a man couldn't commit adultery by having sex with another woman, because polygamy was a accepted and known thing throughout the Old Testament and the New Testament. The only men that was said in the New Testament that cannot have more than one wife was pastors and deacons. So as far as everybody else, you can have multiple wives. So a man didn't commit adultery by having sex with another woman who was not betrothed. That was just having a second, third, fourth, fifth wife in the whole sequence. Now, when you do read this part, and here's something for my Hebrew Israelites, it clearly states in Deuteronomy that you are not supposed to despise the Edomites because they are related to you, and do not despise the Egyptians because you resided as foreigners in their country. And the third generation of children born to them may enter into the Lord's assembly. And then it talks about if a man is balls or crushed and all that kind of stuff. Well, not them, but it also talks about how the Ammonites and the Moabites, they can't enter into this guy's assembly to the 10th generation. And the Ammonites and the Moabites will be your Arabs of today, that they wouldn't be able to enter into this, enter. So for all the hate that the Hebrew Israelites have towards who they call the Edomites, the white people, their true hatred, according to their Bible, should be directed towards the Arabs. Even though I don't think that hatred should be directed towards anybody or any group, just simply because some book is telling you so. But chew on that, Hebrew Israelites. And then chew on the fact that if a man is born a eunuch, or a man has crushed his balls or cut them off, even though Jesus said he can go to heaven, according to the Old Testament God, Jesus, they can't go to heaven. They can't be in the presence of God. So, yeah, all of that. So y'all have a great day. And remember always, you have to free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibration.